Rookie Detective Jake Carter sat at his desk in the dimly lit precinct, staring at an old case file. The murder of real estate tycoon Victor Langley had gone unsolved for over 5 years. His gut told him something wasn't right. As he flipped through the pages, he noticed inconsistencies, witness statements that contradicted each other, evidence that seemed to have disappeared. Jake's mentor, Detective Marcus Hill, leaned over his shoulder. "You're wasting your time, kid. That case is dead." "But why?" Jake pressed. "The evidence doesn't add up." "It's like someone wanted this buried," Marcus sighed. "Exactly. And if you know what's good for you, you'll drop it." That night, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he was onto something big. He started digging into Langley's business dealings and found a connection to a powerful politician. That's when he heard a noise outside his apartment window. Someone was watching him. He grabbed his gun and crept toward the window, peering through the blinds. A dark silhouette stood across the street, barely visible under the flickering streetlight. The figure seemed to sense him and disappeared into the alleyway. Jake's heart pounded. He threw on his jacket and rushed outside, but by the time he reached the alley, the figure was gone, leaving only a cigarette still burning on the pavement. Jake couldn't sleep. He replayed the encounter in his mind. Why was someone watching him? More importantly, what did they not want him to find? The next morning, Jake visited the archives, hoping to find more files on Langley's murder. He was shocked to discover that the entire case folder had been marked as restricted access. Someone had locked it away. As he exited the records room, he noticed a man in a black suit watching him from the far end of the hallway. The man didn't move, he simply stared. Jake's phone buzzed. "A private number, Detective Carter." He answered. A distorted voice replied, "You need to stop looking. Who is this?" Jake demanded, but the call ended. He turned back to the hallway. The man in the black suit was gone. That evening, Jake met with an old reporter, Lisa Marquez, who had covered the Langley case years ago. "I got too close," she admitted. "I started receiving threats. Then one night, my house was broken into. I barely got away." Lisa handed him a flash drive. "This is everything I have. Be careful." Jake reviewed the files and found a name: Daniel Reese, a key witness who had testified against Langley's business rival, but disappeared before the trial ended. If anyone knew the truth, it was him. Tracking Reese down was harder than expected. He had vanished without a trace. But Jake found a lead: an old address in a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. As he entered the room, he found signs of a struggle. Papers were scattered, furniture overturned. Then, a blood-stained note on the floor caught his eye. "You're next." A floorboard creaked behind him. Jake spun around, gun drawn, but the room was empty. His pulse raced. He quickly took pictures of the scene and pocketed the note before heading out. As he stepped into the parking lot, he noticed a black SUV parked a few spaces away. The moment he locked eyes with the driver, the SUV peeled out, tires screeching. He wasn't just investigating a case anymore, he was a target. Jake reported his findings to his captain, but instead of support, he received a warning. "Drop this case, detective." "That's an order." Frustrated, Jake confided in Marcus. "I think someone inside the department is involved." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "You're not wrong. But this goes higher than you think." Jake's phone buzzed. Another private number. He answered, and a distorted voice whispered, "You don't know who you're dealing with. Walk away." That night, Jake decided to break into the police archives. He needed to know why the Langley file was restricted. Using Marcus's old badge, he bypassed security and accessed the file room. What he found sent chills down his spine. His own name was listed under active investigation. After Jake discovered that his name was listed under active investigation in the restricted archives, the stakes escalated rapidly. He now realized that not only was someone trying to silence him, but his very presence had become a threat to those deep within the system. The atmosphere in the precinct changed overnight. Furtive glances and whispered warnings followed him down the corridors. One late night, as Jake made his way back from reviewing additional files in the archives, he sensed something amiss. The normally quiet hallway was filled with an eerie stillness. Suddenly, he heard muffled voices and saw movement at the far end. Before he could react, a group of masked figures in dark tactical gear emerged from the shadows. Their faces were hidden beneath balaclavas, and their eyes glinted with a cold resolve. They converged on him with coordinated precision, their voices shouting orders as they attempted to corral him into a narrow corridor. Without hesitation, Jake dove behind a row of filing cabinets. The corridor exploded with chaos as gunshots echoed off the walls. Bullets whizzed past, punctuating the tense silence with violent bursts of sound. Jake's heart pounded in his ears, but he quickly gathered his training. He returned fire when an assailant came too close, knocking one of the attackers off balance. In the melee, he realized that this was no random attack. It was a meticulously planned trap set by corrupt officers determined to silence his investigation once and for all. The firefight forced Jake into a maze of dimly lit corridors. He sprinted through narrow service passages, desperately searching for an escape route. Every step was laden with danger. The sound of pounding footsteps and shouted commands grew louder as his pursuers closed in. At one critical moment, he found himself in a dead-end corridor where a black van idled ominously, its engine humming softly in the background. Cornered and with nowhere to turn, Jake ducked behind a concrete pillar, his breath ragged and his senses on high alert. In that heart-stopping instant, one of the masked attackers spotted him and fired a warning shot that ricocheted off the metal pillar. With sheer determination, Jake seized the moment to counterattack, pushing through the panic. He disarmed one of his attackers with a swift, calculated move. Amid the ensuing chaos, his mind flashed back to a secret escape route he had discovered during his earlier investigations. Summoning every ounce of resolve and tactical acumen, he maneuvered into a narrow service corridor that led to an exit rarely used by the regular staff. The chase continued relentlessly down the maze like passages as the sound of overlapping gunfire, frantic shouts, and echoing footsteps filled the air. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of nerve-wracking suspense, Jake burst out into a deserted, rain-drenched street. Neon lights and sporadic street lamps illuminated his soaked, torn uniform and the scars of the night's struggle. Without pausing, he dialed his secure line to contact Marcus, urgently requesting backup and instructing him to cover his exit route. As he blended into the dark, rainy night, Jake knew that while the trap was meant to silence him, it had only hardened his determination to expose the corruption at the heart of the conspiracy. After the chilling discovery in the archives, Jake finds himself in the middle of a carefully orchestrated trap. As he leaves the restricted file room, a pair of shadowy figures ambush him in the deserted corridor of the precinct. Gunshots ring out in the eerie silence. Jake ducks behind a row of filing cabinets as bullets whiz past, the sound echoing in the narrow hallway. His heart races as he returns fire, adrenaline surging through his veins. Realizing that staying inside the building now means certain capture, Jake bolts out through a side exit. Rain begins to fall, washing the dark streets as he sprints down the alley. He narrowly dodges another ambush in a narrow side street, using his agility and tactical training to evade his pursuers. The sound of tires screeching and engines revving follows him as a black SUV speeds after him. Every step is a fight for survival. With the city lights blurred in the downpour, Jake makes a daring leap over a chain link fence, disappearing into the maze of deserted backstreets. As he slows to catch his breath in a hidden corner, he retrieves his phone and sends a quick, coded message to a trusted ally, pleading for backup. Amidst his racing thoughts, he realizes that the conspiracy is not just about a single case, it has reached deep within his own department. Jake finds temporary refuge in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, where he makes contact with his longtime partner, Detective Lisa Carter. Under the cover of darkness, they meet in a secluded corner. The tension is palpable as Jake, still on edge from the ambush, questions Lisa about any prior warning. Her eyes, usually warm and supportive, now flicker with something unreadable. "Lisa, I know you're in on something," Jake hisses, voice low as rain drums on the metal roof above. "Why wasn't I warned? Who's pulling the strings here?" Lisa's face tightens, and for a moment, silence fills the room. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she produces a hidden recorder and a stack of classified documents. "I'm not betraying you, Jake," she confesses, voice quivering with determination. "I've been working undercover within internal affairs. I suspected corruption in our own ranks long before you did. I had to maintain my cover, even if it meant appearing indifferent." The duo spends hours poring over evidence, piecing together a disturbing pattern that implicates several high-ranking officers in the conspiracy. Every revelation stokes Jake's anger and determination. With Lisa's evidence in hand, they know that exposing the truth might mean turning against colleagues, but justice demands it. Armed with mounting evidence and a burning desire for justice, Jake and Lisa decide to confront one of the key figures in the corruption, Captain Raymond Delgado, the man who had ordered Jake to drop the case. They plan a covert meeting in a derelict warehouse known as a rendezvous for underground dealings. In the oppressive darkness of the warehouse, dusty crates and broken machinery set the stage for a high-stakes confrontation. Jake, his face smeared with sweat and determination, leads Lisa through the labyrinth of corridors. They hide behind a stack of crates as they hear voices approaching. A group of corrupt officers, led by a cold-eyed enforcer, congregates around a makeshift table, discussing details that shock even the hardened detectives. Using a concealed earpiece, Lisa whispers, "This is our chance. Capture audio, take pictures, get everything we can." As the conversation unfolds, Jake listens intently, his mind racing with every incriminating word. Suddenly, one of the officers makes a crude remark about silencing any troublemakers, confirming that they are indeed planning further attacks against those who dare oppose them. When the meeting ends, Jake and Lisa exchange determined looks. They have enough evidence to bring down this web of corruption. But as they begin to leave, footsteps echo in the distance. They realize they have been spotted. A fierce chase ensues through the shadowy corridors of the warehouse, where the sound of heavy breathing and urgent shouts fills the air. The warehouse chase leads to a brutal, adrenaline-fueled confrontation. Cornered in a vast, echoing chamber of the decrepit warehouse, Jake and Lisa face off against a cadre of corrupt officers, including the merciless enforcer who had orchestrated the ambushes. With no escape route in sight, Jake orders Lisa to cover him. As he moves into action, a ferocious fight erupts. Fists collide with hardened bodies, and the clatter of metal against metal resounds. Jake's training takes over. Each move is precise, each strike calculated. Amidst the chaos, he locks eyes with Captain Delgado, who stands smugly amidst the fray, convinced of his own power. Delgado's eyes widen in disbelief as Jake's fury becomes undeniable. Your reign of corruption ends tonight. Jake roars, pushing past the chaos and engaging Delgado in a vicious hand-to-hand combat. The battle is raw and unyielding, a dance of survival where every second counts. Lisa, providing cover fire and strategic support, uses her agility to disarm two officers, her determination matching Jake's intensity. As the struggle reaches its climax, sirens begin to wail outside backup, finally arriving. The corrupt officers, caught off guard by the sudden arrival of reinforcements from internal affairs, scatter in disarray. Jake overpowers Delgado, pinning him to the cold concrete floor. Delgado's expression shifts from arrogance to terror as he realizes that his crimes will no longer go unpunished. In the aftermath of the violent showdown, the warehouse falls into an eerie silence as backup forces secure the scene. The corrupt officers are arrested on the spot, and Captain Delgado is taken into custody. As dawn breaks, the first rays of sunlight filter through the broken windows of the warehouse, symbolizing a new beginning. Jake and Lisa stand amidst the chaos, their chests heaving as they watch the culprits being led away. The evidence they gathered, audio recordings, photographs, and testimonies, now promises to dismantle a decades-old network of corruption within the department. Internal affairs and federal agents quickly move in to begin a full-scale investigation, ensuring that justice will be served. In a quiet moment outside the precinct later that morning, Jake reflects on the journey. The scars of the night's battle are fresh, but the hope for change burns brighter than ever. "We did it," he murmurs, more to himself than to anyone else. Lisa smiles, her eyes conveying both relief and determination. The city, once shrouded in distrust and corruption, now begins to see a glimmer of renewal. As the community learns of the dramatic takedown, citizens gather outside the station in support. A local news crew interviews Jake, who, despite his weariness, speaks with conviction. "I stand for justice. No one is above the law, not even those who are supposed to protect it." His words resonate with everyone present, marking the dawn of a reformed and accountable police force.